But after the shoot in her studio, she received a letter from him that surprised us all.
So, did you read that first opening line?
No, do you want to?
I read, "Dear Grandpa, I guess
in the letter, he states that their relationship is over and that she is no longer a member of their family.
Most of my family adopted you as a niece or a cousin. Because I was in this film, it has made Grandpa, upset to the extent that now he's going to say I'm not his real granddaughter." In this picture of Grandpa and us as little girls here, I've spent months and years of my life at his home in Omaha with just my twin sister and I. In spring break, we would go and visit him, and we would stay in his home, and it was just us, and we spent so much time bonding as his grandchildren. Money is a part of life. You have to make money to live. And so, but I think that when that element of necessity is taken to an extreme, there's an imbalance there. And with that monetary imbalance comes an emotional imbalance.
At the same time of Nicole's struggle with her grandfather, Warren Buffett came out and announced that he was giving a majority of his fortune to charity. I asked Nicole how she felt as the world celebrated his generosity.
I feel that who my grandfather is publicly, as a public figure, and who my grandfather, Warren Buffett, is as a grandfather, as a father, as a brother, as a son, are two completely different things.
Warren Buffett's reaction to the film ended up in the newspaper. My family started to get nervous, and they called me in for a meeting with my father and his financial advisor.
Jamie, I don't agree with the thesis of your movie. I don't respect the way in which you documented it.
I don't know that you're right. I mean, I think this movie's taking in a good direction. I think so far I've learned a lot, and I think, if anything, what I've seen suggests that some of my original thoughts about it were on the right track. And I don't understand why your resistance would be so severe. I mean, if it's not a threatening thing, then why are you reacting this way?
No, Jamie, I'm not freaked out by the project. I'm disappointed in what you've conspired to do with it.
Jim, you think Brian's right?
What do you mean, Brian? He's upset. I can understand it. I'm not sure whether he's right or wrong, but...
I feel like this movie is a good idea, and I feel like I've got to go forward with it either way.
I can't take any more. It's too much for me.
Oh, dear.
Well, Brian, I don't understand why.
I'm human. I get pissed off when you say, okay, fine, I'll go do my homework, and you don't. I don't need it. It's a pain in the ass. You're behaving like a little arrogant trustafarian. Come on, give me a break.
I'm not surprised that Brian is upset with this movie. His job is to ensure that members of the 1% keep getting richer. And for him, the growing wealth gap is an indication that he and people like him are doing their jobs. But not all rich people see the growing wealth gap as a good sign. For some, it's a problem that needs to be reversed.
People who have been enabled to accumulate very, very large wealth have an indebtedness to society for having made that possible. They live in a place which generates individual wealth. The creation of the microprocessor, the human genome research, the internet, none of those things would exist but for the $90 billion that the federal government spends every year on basic research. People don't really see the role that the use of tax dollars plays in making our economy so vibrant.
Hold on.
What if we had a slightly more aggressive tax system and supported the bottom.
You would have less growth, and the bottom would be poorer. Would in the end up worse off. You would do harm, not good. Look, people don't pay those high taxes. They find ways of getting around it. And you're never going to be able to stop them from finding ways to get around it.
I mean, I think there's definitely merit to that, and I certainly wouldn't advocate socialism.
Well, you are advocating, excuse me, don't talk that way. You are advocating socialism. That's exactly what you're advocating. You're just not willing to call it socialism.
I'm just advocating a slightly more progressive tax structure.
That's socialism.
If you're going to have a society of balance, the load of the taxes have to fall on the people with the money. And I don't resent the very wealthy. As a matter of fact, I'd like to be one. But I do think that many of the wealthy people understand that they could probably pass a little bit of another tax break to have a little left for a head start.
Back in the old days, you would tax passive income, meaning dividend and interest income, differently than salaried income. Right now, a guy making money from dividends pays 15% tax, but a soldier over in Iraq pays 40% tax, 30% income tax.
Imagine the idea of a worker going to a foundry every day, heat, dust, working. Imagine a society that says to that foundry worker, you're going to pay more share of your income in federal income taxes than the multi-millionaire is going to pay on his or her dividends and capital gains.
Entrepreneurs and small business owners are also singled out for punishment by the estate tax, better known as the death tax.
When you die, if your assets flow to your descendants, then the descendants that receive it are required to pay a tax on that transfer. The estate tax in itself is really, to me, anti-American. It is a redistributionist type tax because that money has been taxed and taxed and taxed all throughout your life, and then they tax it again.
Taxes on estates are criminal, but and are unethical, in fact.
The estate tax, in about 5 years, will only apply the federal estate tax to about 4,000 estates, the real rich estates, 10 million and above. Maybe it's even less than that. But the propaganda by the Republicans and the rich have been so relentless that most people think, gee, my estate should go to my kids. The federal government shouldn't tax it.
You don't pay the estate tax unless you are already extremely wealthy. It's mythological that this is for small farmers or for small businesses. No, we're talking about the wealthiest people in this country.
I remember in 1997, there was this big push to abolish the inheritance tax, and at the time I was like, wow, where did this come from? Now I know that the Mars family and the Gallo family and all these enormously wealthy families bankrolled an effort to abolish the inheritance tax. Forrest Mars, net worth $10 billion, lives in Virginia and wants to get rid of the estate tax. I mean, how much money does you want to pass on, It was December 2000 that I got an email from Bill Gates Sr., the founder of Microsoft, who said, how can I help? He said, the idea that we would eliminate the estate tax is just wrong. He says, well, I'll call Warren Buffett and George Soros and Paul Newman, and so I said, all right, you call your friends and I'll call my friends, and we'll see what we can do.
I'm here talking to people in the Senate about the federal estate tax bill. The Republicans are trying to repeal it. Their constituents don't like to pay the tax, and they're trying to help their constituents by repealing it.
How's everything in Seattle? Good.
We are developing a very serious wealth disparity. And the fact of the matter is that the disparity has developed even though we do have an estate tax. So I hate to think how bad it would be if we hadn't had an estate tax over this time.